They called me a death omen when the first tear fell. I was standing at the royal ceremony, my black fur pressed and groomed, my heart so full of hope it hurt. The Alpha King stood before the entire realm and looked at me, truly looked at me, and declared me unworthy. Cursed, a bringer of ruin, I cried. Of course I cried. But my tears didn't fall the way other wolves' tears fell. They froze the moment they left my eyes. Tiny crystals that shattered against the stone floor of the ceremony, ground like broken glass. And every wolf in that clearing took one step back, including him, King Caelen of the Ironwood realm, the wolf I had been chosen for by the moon goddess herself. He looked at the frozen tears scattered across the stone and called them a curse, called me dangerous, sent me away before the bonding ceremony could finish. I should have died in the wilderness after that. Instead, I found out what my tears could actually do, and so did he. Chapter 1, The Ice Garden. The frozen wasteland beyond the Ironwood border had a name among the northern packs, the Hollow. Wolves didn't survive the Hollow alone. Too cold, too vast, too empty. It was where packs sent their most shameful exiles, the ones they wanted to forget existed. Leave them at the border, let the Hollow swallow them whole, pretend the problem never happened. I had been walking for 4 days. My black fur was matted with ice. My paws had gone numb somewhere around the second day and hadn't come back. The wind cut through me like claws, reaching past fur and skin and muscle to scrape against something deeper. Something that felt very much like the last ember of my will to keep moving. I stopped walking, not because I chose to. My legs simply quit. I collapsed into the snow and lay there, staring up at a sky so gray it looked like the moon goddess had given up on color entirely. My breath came in slow, shallow clouds that disappeared almost before they formed. This is it, I thought. This is where Caelen's rejection ends me. A tear slipped from the corner of my eye. I watched it fall in slow motion, watched it freeze midair, just like they always did, catching the pale light before it shattered against the snow beside my face. But this time something different happened. Where the frozen tear landed, a flower grew, small, delicate, white as bone, with petals like ice that somehow weren't cold. It pushed up through the compacted snow, with quiet insistence, blooming in seconds, alive and impossible in the deadest place in the northern realm. I stared at it. Then I cried properly, the way I'd been holding back for 4 days, and my tears fell in a cascade, each one freezing, each one landing, each one splitting into light before it shattered. And everywhere they landed, flowers grew. Within minutes, I was lying in a garden, in the middle of the Hollow, in the dead of winter. I sat up slowly, my body protesting every movement, and looked around at what my grief had made. Dozens of white blooms. Petals that shouldn't exist. Life in a place that had never known anything but death. "What are you?" I whispered to myself, because I had no one else to ask. My tears had always been the thing that ruined me. My mother had whispered that they weren't natural. My packmates had flinched when they fell. And Caelen, King Caelen of the Ironwood realm, the most powerful wolf in the north, had looked at them scattered across his ceremony ground and declared them proof that I was cursed. But cursed things didn't grow flowers. I was still staring at the impossible garden when I heard the sound that changed everything. A howl. Not a wolf's howl. Not quite. More like the memory of one, weak and ragged, coming from somewhere deeper in the Hollow. The kind of sound that meant an animal was past fear and well into something darker, dying. I should have stayed down. Should have saved what was left of my strength. Should have let the wilderness handle its own dead. Instead, I stood up, my numb legs barely cooperating, and followed the sound. Chapter 2, The Dying King. He was enormous, even collapsed in a crater of his own blood, even with his silver-gray fur matted, and his massive frame shaking with each labored breath. King Caelen of the Ironwood realm radiated power the way a dying sun radiates heat, vast, fading, impossible to look away from. I knew it was him immediately. Every wolf in the northern realm knew Caelen's silver-gray coloring, knew the breadth of his shoulders, the particular authority of his frame. I had studied him from a distance for months before the bonding ceremony, memorizing the wolf I thought was going to be my mate. He had a spear through his flank, black iron, the kind used by rogue hunters. The wound was deep and wrong, already festering with a spiritual rot I could smell from 10 paces. Something had been done to that spear before it was thrown. Something ancient and vicious. He was going to be dead by morning. Every single instinct I had told me to turn around, to leave him, To let the wolf who had humiliated me in front of the entire realm face his end, alone in the place he'd sent me to die. I stood there for a long time. Long enough that the cold started working on me again. Long enough that 2 of my tears fell and shattered, growing white flowers in the snow between us. Long enough that Caelen's eyes cracked open, storm gray, unfocused with pain, and found my face. He didn't speak. He was too far gone for words. But the look in his eyes when he saw me. Gods. I had expected fear, had expected him to flinch the way he'd flinched at my tears during the ceremony. Instead, what I saw was something that broke the last of my resistance, recognition. And beneath it, shame. He knew exactly who I was. He knew exactly what he'd done to me. And he was looking at me with that wound in his flank and making no demands, no commands, no royal declarations. Just a wolf who had done a terrible thing, looking at the wolf he'd wronged, knowing he had no right to ask for anything. "I'm going to help you," I said, my voice coming out strange in the silence of the hollow. "Not because you deserve it. Because I'm not the cursed thing you said I was." I pressed my paw against the wound, and my tears fell. They fell the way they always did when emotion overwhelmed me, freezing as they left my eyes, but this time, instead of shattering, they did something new. They melted against the heat of the festering wound, seeping into it, and where they touched, the rot receded. I felt it happening, felt the connection between my grief and something deeper, something healing in the frozen crystal of each tear. The spear's dark magic fought back. It clawed at me through the contact, cold and vicious, trying to drag me down into the rot with Caelen. I held on. I held on because I had spent 4 days being told by the universe that I was worthless, and I was done agreeing. My tears fell faster. The flowers grew around us both, spreading outward in a circle, filling the hollow with impossible white blooms. The dark magic screamed against the light. Then it broke. I fell back into the snow, gasping, every part of me wrung out and empty. Caelen's breathing had steadied. His wound was closing. The festering rot was gone. He was going to live. I looked at my paws, shaking with exhaustion, and then at the garden surrounding us both. My curse had done this. My terrible, shameful, ceremony-ruining tears had pulled the Alpha King of the Ironwood realm back from the edge of death. I laughed. It came out a little broken, but it was real. "Still think I'm cursed?" I asked the unconscious king. He didn't answer. I curled up in the flowers my grief had grown, and I slept. Chapter 3. The Storm Gray Reckoning. I woke to warmth and the sound of someone trying very hard not to make noise. My eyes opened. Caelen was sitting 3 feet away, watching me with an expression I had never seen on his face before. During the ceremony, he had worn authority like armor, cold and impenetrable. Now he looked like a wolf who had swallowed something that was eating him from the inside out. "You're awake," he said. His voice was rough, scraped raw. "You're alive," I replied. Silence. He looked at the flowers surrounding us, looked at them for a long time, the same flowers that had bloomed from my tears. Still alive, still impossible. Dusting the snow of the hollow with white petals. "I thought," he started, "that I was cursed." I finished. "I know. You told me, in front of every pack in the northern realm." His jaw tightened. "Senna." My name in his voice felt strange. During the ceremony, he had said it once, flatly, before the declaration. "Senna of the Greywood Pack is found unworthy." He said it differently now, like it had weight. "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't say my name like that, and then explain why you were right to do what you did. I don't have the strength for it." I wasn't going to say that. I looked at him. His storm gray eyes met mine, and what I saw there was not the composed, untouchable king who had rejected me. It was something much more difficult to look at. A wolf in the middle of realizing the size of the mistake he'd made. "My counsel told me your tears were a death omen," he said finally. "They showed me records, old texts about wolves whose unnatural gifts had destroyed their packs. They convinced me that bonding with you would bring ruin to the Ironwood realm." A muscle in his jaw moved. "I believed them. Over what you could see with your own eyes." "Yes." The honesty of it startled me. I had expected justification. Politics, the language of kings who never admitted fault. "I was afraid," Caelen said, and the words sounded like they cost him something significant. "The realm was watching. If I bonded with a wolf, my counsel called cursed, and something went wrong, the consequences would fall on everyone. I chose the realm over." He stopped. "Over me," I said. "Over what was right," he corrected quietly. "There's a difference. And I've had 4 days lying in a festering wound, with nothing but silence and the memory of your face to think about it." 4 days. He'd been out here 4 days before I found him. The same 4 days I'd been wandering. Who did this to you? I asked, because I was a healer by nature and the healer in me needed the full picture. My council. The words fell like stones. The same wolves who told me you were dangerous. When I began asking questions about the old texts they'd shown me, when I started to wonder if they'd been wrong, they arranged for a hunting accident. His lip curled. They underestimated how long it takes to kill an alpha king. Cold fury settled in my chest. They sent me into the hollow, I said slowly, and then they tried to kill you. They wanted the realm to themselves. I was inconvenient. You were a loose end. He looked at me steadily. Instead, you are apparently the only reason I am still breathing. Silence stretched between us, filled with everything that needed to be said and hadn't been. I grew flowers, I said finally. My tears. When they hit the ground out here, they grew flowers. That's not what a death omen does. No, Caelen agreed. It isn't. Your council lied to you. Yes, and you're going to have to do something about that. Yes. He paused. But first I need to get you out of the hollow. You've been out here 4 days. You're exhausted, half frozen, and you just spent the last of your strength pulling me back from the edge of death. His gaze moved over me with something careful in it. Let me carry you back. I stared at him. You want to carry me, I repeated. The wolf you publicly declared unworthy 4 days ago. The wolf who saved my life, he said simply. Yes, it wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close to enough. But it was a beginning, and I was cold and empty, and there were flowers blooming in the hollow that shouldn't have been able to exist, and maybe that meant impossible things were possible after all. Fine, I said, but Caelen, he met my eyes. I am not the same wolf you rejected at that ceremony. 4 days in the hollow changes something in you. So before you carry me anywhere, you need to understand that I am not going back to being the wolf who stood there quietly while you declared me unworthy. Whatever comes next, that version of me is gone. Something shifted in his expression. Not surprise, something closer to relief. Good, he said quietly. I don't think I deserve that version of you anyway. Chapter 4. The Weight of Ice Flowers. The Ironwood realm looked different when you returned to it, as something other than an exile. Caelen had sent a scout ahead. By the time we reached the outer border, there was an escort waiting. 12 of his elite warriors in battle formation, their eyes moving past him immediately to me. Not with the flinching horror of the ceremony. With something closer to awe. Word travels fast among wolves. They had heard about the flowers in the hollow. About the Alpha King, found alive in a garden of impossible blooms in the deadest place in the north. Every wolf on that escort line was looking at the tears dried on my black fur and thinking the same thing. That's what saved him. I held my head up. For the first time in 4 days, it didn't feel like an effort. The council chambers were waiting. When we arrived at the heart of the realm, Caelen had sent for his advisors, all 6 of them. They stood in a row when we entered, expressions carefully arranged into concern and relief, and I watched the moment each of them registered my presence. Satisfaction tried to creep into my face. I kept it quiet. My king, said the eldest, a heavy-jowled gray wolf named Aldrich, who had stood in the front row during my rejection. We are relieved to see you alive. When you didn't return from the hunt you arranged, Caelen said pleasantly. Aldrich's performance of concern didn't crack. He was good. I don't understand. The spear was black iron treated with hollow rot, Caelen continued, his voice still conversational. There are perhaps 4 wolves in the northern realm who know that ritual. All 4 of them serve on this council. Silence. And then there is the matter, Caelen said, his tone shifting to something quieter and more dangerous. Of the texts you showed me about Senna of the Greywood Pack. He looked at me then, just briefly, an acknowledgement. Bring me the original records, he said to the council. Not the ones you showed me, the actual originals. Another silence. Longer. It was the youngest council member, a lean russet wolf named Petra, who broke first. She lowered her head and said quietly, the original records name the silver tear gift as the mark of the wellspring. The rarest healing gift the moon goddess grants. It hasn't appeared in 3 generations. She didn't look at the others. What we showed the king was a fabrication. The chamber erupted. I stood in the middle of it and let my tears fall. They froze as they always did. Shattered as they always did. And where they landed on the cold stone floor of the council chamber, small white flowers pushed up through the cracks. One by one. spreading outward from where I stood. The shouting died. Every wolf in the room was looking at the flowers. "The mark of the wellspring," I said into the silence, "creates life. It heals what is broken. It grows things in dead places." I looked at Aldrich, who had gone very still. "That is not what a curse does." Caelen stepped forward until he was beside me, his silver-gray bulk a steady presence at my shoulder. "Remove them," he said to his elite guard. "All 6. Hold them for judgment." As the council was escorted out, Aldrich passing close enough that I could see the fear finally cracking through his composure. I felt something inside me settle. Something that had been braced and waiting for another blow slowly stood down. "That's not enough," I said quietly to Caelen, when the chamber had emptied. "Removing them from council doesn't undo what they did, to you or to me." "No," he agreed. "It doesn't." He turned to face me fully. "What would be enough, Senna?" I thought about the ceremony, about every wolf who had watched me be declared unworthy, about the 4 days I'd spent in the hollow believing I deserved it. "A public reckoning," I said. "The same witnesses. The truth spoken where the lie was spoken." "Done," Caelen said immediately. I looked at him. This wolf who had chosen badly under pressure, who had spent 4 days dying in the wilderness, and apparently used the time to do something close to genuine reflection. "You're different out here," I said, "than you were at the ceremony." "The ceremony version of me was an idiot who let his council think for him," Caelen said flatly. "The hollow version had nothing to think about, except what he'd done, and whether he'd get the chance to do better." He paused. "I'd prefer to be the hollow version." Something in my chest moved. I didn't let it show. It was far too soon for that. "Then start by calling the realm together," I said, "and tell them the truth." Chapter 5. The tears that built a kingdom. They gathered in the same place. The same stone ground where I had stood 4 days ago and had my future stripped away. The same witness lines of pack representatives from across the northern realm. The same cold winter sky watching from above. But this time, I was not standing at the edge of the gathering trying to make myself small. I was standing at the center of it, and I was not shaking. Caelen had given me the choice of where to stand. I had chosen beside him. His council stood separately, under guard, their expressions ranging from defiant to broken. 4 days ago, Caelen said, his voice carrying across the gathering with the particular authority of a wolf, who had decided to stop letting others carry his words for him. I stood in this place and I declared Senna of the Greywood Pack unworthy. I told the realm that her tears were a death omen, that bonding with her would bring ruin. He paused. I was wrong. Murmurs moved through the crowd. I was deceived by advisors whose interest was in controlling this realm rather than serving it. They fabricated records. They manipulated my fear, and I chose to believe them over the evidence in front of me. His storm gray eyes moved briefly to mine. I chose badly. The silence was absolute. "The gift Senna carries is called the Mark of the Wellspring," Caelen continued. "It is the rarest healing gift the moon goddess grants. It grows life in dead places. It pulls poison from wounds that should be fatal." Another pause. "It kept me alive for 4 days in the hollow, after my own council tried to have me killed." The murmur became something larger. "I am not here to ask for her forgiveness in front of witnesses," Caelen said, and I heard the care in those words. "The deliberate choice. That is between us. I am here to tell the realm the truth was owed 4 days ago. Senna of the Greywood Pack is not cursed. She is not a death omen. She is not unworthy." He turned to face me directly, in front of everyone. "She is the reason I'm standing here." I had promised myself I would not cry. I had been very firm about this. A tear slipped free before I could stop it. It froze. It fell. It shattered against the stone at my feet. And a white flower bloomed, right there in the center of the ceremony ground, fragile and certain and alive. Then another tear, another flower. Then the tears came properly, the way they had in the hollow, the way they did when something too large for me to contain tried to move through the too small space of my chest. They fell in a cascade, each one crystallizing, each one landing, each one blooming. The flowers spread outward across the stone in a wave of white, spreading to the witness lines, spreading to where Thwers were standing. Where the flowers touched the ground beneath wolves' paws, I heard the sounds. A wolf somewhere in the crowd, who had been coughing, stopped coughing. An elder who had been hunched with a long carried pain, slowly straightened. A young wolf at the back of the gathering, who hadn't spoken in 3 seasons, suddenly lifted her head and made a sound, just a small one, but real. The wellspring. Living up to its name. I stood in the middle of the garden my grief and my hope had made together, and I let myself believe it. Let myself accept what my tears had always been. Not a curse, a gift. Not a death omen, a promise. The gathered wolves began to howl. Not the polite, formal acknowledgement of ceremony, the real sound. The deep, rolling chorus of an entire realm recognizing something true. Caelen moved to stand beside me in the flowers. "I meant what I said," he said quietly, so only I could hear it under the howling. "The apology belongs to you, not the realm." "I know," I said. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what I did." "You don't," I agreed, "but I want to ask anyway." He was quiet for a moment. "Not as your king. As the wolf who found you in a garden in the hollow and understood for the first time what I'd thrown away." He looked at me, and the storm gray of his eyes had something in it I recognized. The same thing I'd seen when he was dying and had no more pretense left. Raw, real, ashamed in the way that meant he intended to do better. "Will you give me the chance to be worthy of what you are?" A tear fell between us, froze, landed. A single white flower, right at the point where we were both standing, rooted in the gap between us like a question waiting to be answered. I looked at it for a long moment, then I looked at him. "One chance," I said, "and Caelen." "I know," he said quietly. "I'll spend it carefully." The flowers spread beneath our paws, white and impossible, and alive, and the howling of the realm wrapped around us both like the beginning of something that had taken far too long and far too much pain to arrive. But it was here now, and it was real. What the hollow grows, they call it, the wellspring garden now. The flowers I grew that first night in the hollow still bloom. I have been back 3 times since. Each time I stand in that place where I collapsed and almost gave up, and I let myself cry. And the flowers grow, and I remember what my tears taught me in the deadest place in the north. Cursed things don't grow gardens. Caelen walks beside me when I go. He doesn't speak much in the hollow. I think it's the one place where the king falls away, and he's just the wolf who made a terrible choice and got very lucky that the one he wronged was stubborn enough to stay alive, long enough to show him what he'd nearly destroyed. I haven't forgotten the ceremony. I don't think I ever will. But I've learned the difference between carrying something and being buried by it. The memory lives in me now like the cold does after a long winter. Present, known, no longer dangerous. The council members were judged. The realm was told everything. The fabricated records were burned in the same clearing where my rejection had been declared. I watched the smoke rise and I cried, and the flowers grew, and I let that be enough. Some mornings I wake up and my tears have frozen against my fur in the night. Tiny crystals caught in my black coat, and Caelen is there, and he looks at them the way he has learned to look at them. Not with fear, not with the reflex flinch he arrived with, but with something steady and deliberate, like he is making a choice. Every single time. I think that's what love actually is, when the ceremony version of it fails you. Not the grand declaration, not the bonding ritual with all its witnesses and its formality. Just a wolf making the same choice every morning to see you clearly, to keep seeing you, to never stop choosing to look. I cry when I think about it. The flowers are beautiful this time of year. If this story reached something inside you, if Senna's tears reminded you of the gifts other people have called your damage, then fight for it. Comment right now. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me what your tears have grown that surprised you. Your voice, your like, your share. That's what keeps Judy's romance library alive. The algorithm needs your noise. Make it. Do it for Senna. Do it for every wolf who was told their gift was a curse. An original story by Judy's romance library, written for wolves who stayed wolves and grew gardens anyway.